Roger, thanks for dropping by. You don't see me with one of those very often, and in fact it's number 2. It's hot, the sun's out, it's a lovely blue sky, it's Easter weekend, and when you're retired that means that all these days are exactly the same as all the other days. It's not a holiday for me, is it? But I decided I'd go and have a sit in the garden. And next door that side and next door that side are both doing the same, so I'm going to keep my voice down because they think I'm nuts anyway. And listening to their quiet conversations while I'm sitting in the garden, it's blatantly obvious if I speak in this conservatory they can hear me. So we'll keep our voice down because, like I say, they already think I'm nuts. Right, today's chat is loosely based around orchids suitable for growing on windowsills, and I've got you all here under false pretenses because I'm not going to recommend any orchids for growing on windowsills, but what I am going to do, which is hopefully interesting, is explain why I'm not going to give you any. Now everybody knows that you could probably grow Phalaenopsis on windowsills, a lot of people do, but it's a question that came up with the ideas that are coming in for new videos, and thanks for those who've given me some ideas. Got half a dozen or so far. If you've got any, put them in the comments. The worst that can happen is you don't get a video. You know, it's got to be worth a try, isn't it? If I'm short of ideas, viewers' ideas are brilliant, so go for it. We'll see what happens. But yeah, it was just a basic question. What orchids are suitable for growing on windowsills? This comes into the same category as how do you feed your orchids? What's your environment like? There's all sorts of questions that come in that seem simple enough to answer until you really give it a bit of thought. Now, let's go through it. Orchids suitable for growing on a windowsill. What windowsill? Now you see where I'm going already. You've already thought, your thoughts have already fired off, which is what I'm after. Get other people to think besides me. Yeah, so what windowsill? North facing, east facing, south facing, west facing, northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere. And that's just the light aspect of where the window is actually pointing. Then how wide's the windowsill? Has the orchid got to be close up to the glass? Is there any netting, net curtain? Is there any form of shading? What's your room atmosphere like? Have you got air conditioning units running, which will take practically every bit of moisture out of your air? And we all know orchids don't like dry air. Yeah? Or have you got central heating on? Do you live in a place where it's so cold your heating's on a lot of the year? Again, your heating system will dry the air out, not good for orchids. Now, okay, we're looking at the atmosphere of the whole room now, but the windowsill is in that room. Now, I saw this once, and it was an ordinary window. It faced west, so it got late afternoon sun. And the windowsill wasn't very big, and it had a radiator underneath it. And you'd think to yourself, that's absolutely useless for orchids. But we're a clever lot, us humans. So it had been adapted. And an aluminium tray had been made that was about 3 foot wide and was screwed onto the windowsill. And it had a lip round it, and those corners had been welded. So it held water. It was watertight, yeah, and it had legs on it to stop it moving away from level, because obviously if you start putting any weight on something that overlaps and overhangs, it's going to start to tip over, isn't it? Yeah, so it was a very firm base and it was level, and it was 3 foot out from the window and the whole width of the windowsill, and it held water, and it had been filled up with moss. Live moss, with water to keep that moss alive. And orchids have been stood on that tray. Now think about what the radiator's doing underneath. Yeah? By warming that up very slightly, you're increasing the evaporation rate. So the orchids sitting in this moss on this tray, which had, about half an inch of water in it, they're in a lovely humid atmosphere. Then up in the corners of the windows were two little tiny fans. You were getting there? We're not there yet, because in addition to all of that, this tray had three sides to it, made out of clear plastic. So now it's an enclosed space with a very controlled atmosphere. And if somebody asked me what orchids I could recommend to grow in there, I'd say almost anything, mate. However, when we come back to the original question, how can you recommend what orchids are good for a windowsill when you don't know anything about that windowsill? I can't do it. But there are orchids that have a little class. It's a made-up class, and they're called windowsill orchids. It's a silly idea, really. What you really are saying is orchids that are suitable to grow in the home. Now, that's a different way of putting it and makes a bit more sense. But nonetheless, what home? What atmosphere? What environment? What temperature? What light? You can't do it. You can't give a satisfactory answer to a question that is just so loose. You just can't do it. So then we get round to why I don't do care videos very often, because unless I know the answers to all those things, it's difficult to recommend how to look after something. And then we back up a bit and get to the point that when I do say about, my orchids, I have to qualify it with saying, this is what I do in my place, in my part of the world. Yeah. Now, if that seems to be similar to where you are, that's fine. That advice might be good stuff, or it may be able to be tailored. Yeah. So it's not quite how you grow, but by adjusting what I've said a little bit to suit your conditions, you get something out of it. Yeah, and that's about the best I can do. That's why I don't do care videos very often. And it's the reason why I can't give you a list of orchids to grow on your windowsill. That's just the way it is. There's I'm very cautious about what I say in my videos. I'm aware of the fact that they get watched. It's a YouTube channel at the end of the day. Anybody can watch it. You need your own channel if you want to leave rude, impertinent comments underneath the videos, but it's a YouTube channel at the end of the day. It can be watched worldwide, and advice for one person is probably totally useless to another, or could be, and could potentially do harm and damage to somebody's plants. And I'd hate to think that something I've said has led to that, which is why I don't do it. And when I do it, I heavily qualify, follow this advice at your own peril. Enter here at your own risk, all those sort of things, that's what we do. That dratted volcano seems to be taking up more and more of my time, and at one point today I cursed it. I actually said, this is just no good, I'm spending too much time watching this flipping volcano. And then I thought to myself, it was actually a comment on there. Somebody said, why are you all wasting your time watching a volcano? And I backed up straight away, hackles up. My time is my own. I choose what I will do with my time, not anybody else. And if I want to watch the volcano, then that's what I want to do. What do you waste your time doing? If it's something we choose to do, is it a waste of time? And that includes just having a doze in the chair. If that's what you choose to do, there's nothing wrong with that. And I then thought that most of the days apart from today, Sunday's a bit different because of this video where I'm in it. And you have to put up with Scruffy today. I haven't had a shave. Not be bothered. The words are the same whether I look scruffy or smart. But yeah, I just sort of thought that normal days, I've got all my computer stuff to do first thing in the morning, all my comments on my YouTube channel, my Facebook group, my own personal emails, the Orchid Society emails and stuff like that. It's a fair bit to do first thing in the morning while I wake up with infinite supplies of coffee. And then there's the rest of the day. Well, some of that's going to be out here. And now that we've lost the short days and we're into the growing season proper, there's something to do out here every single day. And I like to get on with that relatively early in the day before that sun comes round and starts getting it hot in here, which it is now, We are getting warm in here. I've had to shut all the kit down because of the noise, so the fans are off, the extractor and the inlet fan's off, Hurricane Hector's off, everything's off, and it's getting warm in here. The sun's beating down. And as I was doing my watering this morning, I thought, God, that sun's hot. It was getting onto the bald patch. And I thought, I haven't put the shade netting on the roof yet. You remember not that long ago I put the extra layers on the sides. I forgot the roof, didn't I? So I went out there and did that this morning and put the aluminium stripy stuff on the roof. And that's elevated. There's a piece of wood that holds it off the roof, which means there's a reasonable air gap underneath that. So the effect in here is quite good. It actually drops the temperature down in here a couple of degrees and obviously stops that intense light coming in through the roof, that's just too much. So we did that. And yeah, I thought that takes up the morning. Sometimes it drifts after lunch. I usually stop for some lunch at some point, and sometimes I've still got a bit to do with the orchids after lunch, but most of the time it's done by lunchtime. And then what am I going to do? So if I've spent some of my normal morning watching a rather spectacular event, which means I'm late and go on into the afternoon doing other things, so what? It just suddenly dawned on me, so what? Why is there a time limit on when I should get things finished by when I've got the whole flipping day? I can't go out, can I? There's nothing else to do. Ugh. Sometimes you put constraints on yourself that they're not necessary. Just a bit of freedom, a bit of looseness. Anyway, I got an email from Lynn, and I've sent an email to Sarah at Burnhams to ask about reopening on the 12th of April, which is when the next set of COVID regulations change for for England, the UK I suppose. But you have to bear in mind when we talk about the UK, there is a Wales and a Northern Ireland, which there shouldn't be, and a Scotland, and they're classed as three separate countries, and they do their own thing with COVID, although it might be better if it was centralised, but it's not. So when I say the COVID rules, it's the rules for England, which is where I is. That's where I am. Anyway, so I contacted Sarah. I haven't had a reply yet, but she is actually closed for the Easter weekend. She did say the office is shut. Leave an email and I'll get back to you. So I expect to hear from her sort of next week. But the rules change on the 12th. And the important bit is non-essential retail is allowed to open from the 12th, which should include the nursery, the orchid nursery. So Sarah should be back up and running. And Lynn said if I'm going, she'd like a lift. And that does pose a little problem because you're not supposed to give somebody a lift in your car that's not part of your household or your bubble. Strange how you can call a taxi and that's okay. Some of these rules really are a bit daft. When you really dig into them, you think, well, okay, I can get on a taxi. I can get on a bus or a train and sit with loads of other people with my mask on. But I can't give somebody a lift in my car. And then I thought, well, hang on. I haven't got a bubble at the moment because my daughter can't come down. She's got an existing bubble, so I can't join in. But I thought, well, if Lynn's part of my bubble, because I haven't got one at the moment, then she can get in my car. So there is a possibility I'll give Lynn a lift. But until we get to the 12th and these rules are actually elaborated on, that's difficult to say. So the pair of us might be off to Burnhams. We shall see. I'll go. That's definite, opportunity to get back to Burnhams and I'll be off. It doesn't mean to say I'm going to buy loads of orchids. I know what you're thinking. You're getting rid of loads of orchids to create some space. You're going to go straight out to Burnhams and buy a load more. They haven't got a lot that I want. And don't forget, last time I went, I had that wonderful birthday present that people had got together and worked out with Sarah, and I had this 250 odd pound voucher to spend at Burnhams. So I wasn't spending my money, I was spending other people's money that was gratefully sent as a 70th birthday present. I'm still very grateful for that. I shall keep that voucher from Burnhams for life. That was special, so that was special. But nonetheless, this time when I go, I'm going for a day out. I'm going for a drive through some lovely scenery to get and meet up with some people that I know and like, to have a look at some orchids. Hopefully that tea rooms thing that they've got is open and I can have a cooked breakfast when I get there, and then have a cream tea in the afternoon before I make my way home. So it's a day out, that's the way I look at it. It's not specific. It's nice to have it based around orchids, yes, but it's a day out that I've done in the past, I've enjoyed, and I will do again. So that's the idea. And in the near future, once we get past the 12th, I think, probably, we will start on the trips out. Because at the moment, the first native orchids are starting to open. I'm on a couple of Facebook groups and people are posting pictures of things already open or pictures of spikes that won't be that long. And the first trip out, I hope, get it organised. I've got to find a better way to get there than I did last time. It broke my neck last time. Up here, down there, over fences, over walls, through hedges to get to the coast, because there's no access to that part of the coastline. That's probably why the orchids are there. It's the only place they don't get dug up. But anyway, I'm going to find a better way to get there and try and get the car a bit closer and at least have a more level walk. We are not as young as we used to be. But yeah, so that will probably be the first trip out. It's a coastal cliff environment, fantastic views, and some steep hills, and not that easy to access for certainly somebody my age anyway. And that will be for the early spider orchids. And last time I went there, the wind was howling, and although it was a nice day, it was cold because of that bitter wind coming in off the sea. And I'd taken some lunch with me, and I sort of spent so long getting there. It was such hard work. By the time I got there, I was absolutely cream crackered, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I got to get back to the car now, which is the same in reverse. Anyway, I thought, right, before I do anything, I'm going to have my lunch because I can't see any of these flipping orchids around here. And I found some low bushes. I thought, well, that's a bit of shelter from the wind. And I went down in there and I went to sit down on the grass and I nearly sat on the orchids I was looking for. They were there all the time. I hadn't seen them. I hadn't tuned my eye in to that particular orchid. And sometimes, you go looking for something, you walk straight past it, especially when they're not very large. So that'll probably be the first trip out anyway, as a thought. And there's not going to be much else out at the moment. The green-winged orchids are probably opening and the early purples will be out soon. There isn't much else around at the moment apart from the early spider orchids. They're only found in a few places. Probably the majority of the UK would have to travel a hell of a long way to see those in situ. You've got that area along the Dorset coast, and then I think you don't get any more till you get over around Dover, around that part, and that's it. They're on the south coast. That's it. So if you want to see them, you've got to travel, unless you're lucky like me and live just up the road. Well, not far away anyway. So yeah, that'll do for today. But it's just a circular route around why I can't recommend a list of orchids for the windowsill. However, orchids that grow in the home are those that are tolerant of a home environment. So you're looking at ones that don't like incredibly high humidity. They'll put up with a home environment, 40 to 50% humidity. Phalaenopsis. The Dendrobium nobilis will just about put up with that. Some of the Cattleyas will just about put up with that. Some of the Oncidiums will just about put up with that. And really, you're sticking to the stuff. Let's put it this way. In the UK, If you go out to a supermarket or a garden centre and they've got some orchids for sale, the chances are those are going to do reasonably well in your home, or they wouldn't have them because they've been bought from the mass producers in the EU, you know, the likes of the Netherlands and Germany, and those are specifically hybridized to actually be more tolerant of environmental bits and bobs, and therefore more suitable to grow in the home. You venture off into some of the species and the obscure genera and things like that, they're going to be less and less likely to do okay in your home unless you seriously adapt your home or a room in your home, which is the way a lot of people get around it. So there we go. Now back out in the garden and sit in the sunshine, but I need to get this kit back on. Boy, is it getting hot out here. Yes, and yeah, so I got some nice ideas that have come in, so I've got a few ideas for the coming week for videos, and hopefully if you think any more, let's get some more in. It's quite amusing actually. There's been a number of people because my channel name is Roger's Orchids. When I leave a comment on a video on a volcano, it obviously says Roger's Orchids, says hi or whatever, you know, something like that. And some people have picked up on it and said, do you actually grow orchids? And so some people have come over here and had a look at the channel, and a couple have left comments. That's brilliant, you know. Bit of interaction, as they say. I don't expect to get a flood from a feed that's actually a live volcano erupting. A lot of the people there probably don't even know what an orchid is, and I may be being, you know, a bit rude. But those that do, that, you know, notice the channel name, maybe want to come over and take a look. And yeah, we'll get on to some other videos during the week and get back to some plants and what's going on and all that sort of stuff. And as I say, trip out in the not too distant future. We've got a cold snap coming down now with potential for snow. It's not going to reach the south coast, it never does. It's going to dump it all up on Scotland and the north of England and Northern Ireland, I expect. But it's threatened that it could come down this way, but it never does. Yeah, so we've got a cold snap now, and once that cold snap's over, I'll get round to posting the orchids to go, or sorting those out. I'll be in contact with people or ask them to contact me. We can do that now, actually. If you are interested in the orchids to go from the video a while back, you need to send me an email first and foremost, because I'm going to need your address to be able to post. Yeah, can't post anything if I don't know where you are, can I? So we can get that organised, and in that email, the plants you're interested in and where I could send them, you know, that I need that basically, and then I've got to get them in date order to find out, you know, I mean, some of the plants there's only one. Well, it's first come first served. Whoever asks for that plant first gets it, you know. So we will get that organised and we will get those posted out once this initial cold snap's over. I think it's going to come and go. That's the problem. We've got a cold snap now for a few days, and then it's going to start getting a bit warmer again, and then apparently it's going to go cold again next weekend. So it's coming in waves at the moment, but it's a UK post. You know, all I'm interested in is like a three-day window of predicted reasonable night temperatures when we're not going to get the frosts in the morning and stuff. Then I can get things posted. So we'll get that organised. I need that space done actually. Yeah, it's the space and the workload. It's a combination of the two. When you've had orchids for a very long time, they become a routine as a plant. You know exactly what to do with them. You know when they're going to bloom, you know what the blooms are going to look like, and there's an air of boredom can set in with that plant where you've lost interest in it because it's not a challenge, there's nothing to worry about, it just does okay. Which is great. Quite honestly, if I had any sense, I'd have a room full of orchids just like that, wouldn't I? And I wouldn't have problem orchids. But yeah, that's the way it goes. Different people have different ideas. So I'll see you next time. And if you're interested in any of the orchids, drop us an email, and we'll go from there. And as I say, hopefully I'm going to get these sorted over the next couple of weeks, because last year I said orchids to go and it was nearly the summer before I managed to get rid of them. I don't know what went wrong, but it just did. Not so much this time, and it's UK only, I will remind you of that. I can only post orchids to the UK. And I'm going to qualify that because it's just dawned on me, I can't post to Northern Ireland. Because Northern Ireland, when Brexit happened, Northern Ireland got a special set of rules because of its border with proper Ireland. And because of that border, there are customs checks between England mainland and Northern Ireland. And I can't risk plants getting caught up in that wrangle where they still haven't really worked out how it's supposed to work yet. So I'm going to have to exclude that. So basically we're looking at, England, Wales and Scotland. So UK -1. It would be nice if that was permanent, that -1, but that's political. See you next time. Thanks for dropping by.